Ever wanted to create a stylish boxy cropped top that's easy to draft and sew? Even if you are an absolute beginner, in this tutorial I'll show you step by step how to draft your own boxy cropped top pattern with no stress, no complicated dashes, no tricky measurements, just a simple fun design you can finish in no time. I'll also share tips for customizing it with different fabrics so you can make it truly yours. Let's get started. First, let's grab some quick measurements. You will need your bust circumference measurement, your across shoulder measurement, your sleeve length measurement, then the desired crop top length measurement. Don't worry about getting it exact. The beauty of a boxy crop top is its relaxed fit. Write this down and let's start drafting. In this tutorial, I'll be drafting the back and the front together. I've folded 2 pieces of pattern paper with equal size and length. The width of the paper is your across shoulder plus your sleeve length measurement plus any seam allowance you would want to add to the sleeve length. And the height of the paper or the length of the paper is the length of the top plus the seam allowance you need at the hem and then at the shoulder. So as I'm drafting the pattern, I'll be drafting both the front and the back. Now I'll leave about 1 inch from the top of the paper to create a straight line which I'll use as my shoulder guideline. Now on the shoulder guideline, I'm going to input the width of the neck I'll be needing. So in this case, I'm using 4 inches for the width of the top. So on the shoulder guideline, I'll measure and mark 4 inches like so. Then the depth of the front neck, I'll be using 3 inches. So I'll measure and mark 3 inches from the top of the paper. That's from the shoulder line down 3 inches and create a box like so. Then I'll join it with a curve to create the neckline just like so. Now we need the neck depth for the back. I'm using 1.5 inches, so from the shoulder guideline, I'll measure down 1.5 inches and draw a curve just like so to create the back neckline. So the deeper side of the neck is the front side and then the shallow one is the back side. So on the same shoulder guideline, I'll measure and mark my shoulder length, which in this case I'm using 14 divided by 2 is 7 inches. So I'll measure and mark 7 inches like so. Then from that point, I'll measure and mark the sleeve length measurement, which in this case I'm using 6 inches. So I'll measure and mark 6 inches like so. Then from that 6 inches mark, I'll go down by 1.5 inch to create the shoulder slope just like so. Connect the shoulder slope mark to the tip of the neck with a line just like so. You can use the straight side of the ruler to create the line if you want. Now from the shoulder slope point, measure and mark your arm opening measurement, which in this case I'm using 7.5. So I'll measure and mark 7.5 like so. Square a line to create the chest guideline like so. Now I want to join the shoulder slope line to the chest line with a straight line, so I'm going ahead to measure it to make sure it is a straight line. Join the shoulder slope line to the chest line to create the sleeve opening. Now we need our bust line, so from the shoulder we will measure and mark our bust length measurement, that's shoulder to bust measurement, which in this case is 10 inches, so I'll measure and mark 10 inches like so. Square a line to create the bust line. Now I'm going ahead to label the lines. So the first line is the chest line and the second line is the bust line. Now you need to place the top length measurement. So in this case, I am using 17 inches. So I'll measure from the shoulder down 17 inches and mark like so. Then I'll square a line to create the hemline for the top. On the bust line, I'll measure and mark 1/4 of the bust circumference measurement plus 1 inch ease. Then on the hemline, I'll measure and mark the same measurements I marked on the bust line. Since this is a boxy top, I don't need to shape the waist, so I want it straight to create that boxy effect. Now join the sleeve opening line to the bust line with a curve, then the bust line to the hemline with a straight line like so. Now your boxy club top pattern is almost ready, both front and back. Just go ahead and add all the necessary seam allowance you will need for the top. So in this tutorial, I added 1 inch seam allowance at the hemline, then 1/2 inch seam allowance all through. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. After adding all the necessary seam allowance points, you can create the seam allowance line just like what I'm doing. Now you can go ahead and cut your pattern. When you are cutting your pattern, make sure you cut the shallow neckline first. That's the back neckline first. Then after cutting that neckline and the whole pattern, take out the inner parts of the pattern. That's the other paper inside the ones you've drawn on. Take it out before you cut the other neckline for the front. Be sure to label it as back when you take it out, so that you don't confuse it with the front after cutting everything. After taking the back parts out, or after taking one of the sheets out, go ahead and cut the neckline for the front. That's the deeper neckline. There you have it, your very own boxy club top pattern. That's stylish, beginner friendly and customizable. Ready to be cut on a fabric. Try it with cotton for everyday wear or with African print fabric for a bold statement look. Once you've drafted both the front and the back piece, cut your fabric on fold. Sew the shoulder seam, then the side seam. Finish the neckline and the sleeve edge with a facing or bias binding. Or you can fold the sleeve edge twice to finish it off. Then hem the bottom. If you find this helpful, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more easy sewing tutorials. Drop a comment with the fabric you'll be using for the top. I can't wait to see your creations. And don't forget to check out my other pattern drafting tutorials linked below. Until next time, bye bye.